So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Had Rinnegan Power? So let's start the series. The silence after the cataclysm was louder than any explosion. Naruto stood amidst the ruins, the Rinnegan casting the devastated world in a horrifying new clarity. He didn't see just rubble, he saw the fading heat signatures of crushed lives, the weeping chakra streams of the land ruptured and bleeding. It was a symphony of pain, and he was the unwilling conductor. Naruto. Sakura's voice, raw with tears and medical urgency, cut through the psychic noise. She was sprinting towards him, her own chakra a brilliant, frantic green. But as she drew closer, her steps faltered. She skidded to a halt, her emerald eyes wide, fixed not on his face, but on his eyes. The breath hitched in her throat. Your eyes. He saw her fear. Not of him, but for him. And beneath it, a colder, instinctive tremor, the fear of the unknown, of the divine. It was a shard of ice in his heart. I'm okay, Sakura-chan, he said, forcing his voice into a familiar shape. It sounded wrong. Hollow. He tried to smile, but the muscles of his face felt like stone. Sasuke pushed himself up, his own Rinnegan now a dull, exhausted purple. He stared at Naruto's new eyes, his expression unreadable. There was no rivalry in that gaze now, only a deep, wary assessment. The sage's eyes, Sasuke murmured. But, different. Kakashi Hatake appeared in a shunshin, his one visible eye crinkled with profound relief that instantly morphed into profound shock. His Hokage's hat was gone, his uniform torn. He took in the scene, the vanquished foe, the unconscious allies, Naruto standing whole amidst the wreckage with the eyes of legend. Report, Kakashi said, his tone measured, but Naruto could see the storm of confusion and concern in his sensei's chakra. I don't know what happened, Naruto said, his gaze drifting to his hands. Kurama, he's quiet. And I can see everything. Your chakra, Kakashi-sensei. It's low, flickering near your left kidney. You're hurt. Kakashi instinctively placed a hand on his side. He hadn't mentioned an injury. I see, he said softly. The implications hung in the ashy air, perfect diagnosis, perfect perception. A surgeon's dream and a spy's nightmare. The cleanup was a surreal ordeal. Naruto's every movement was scrutinized. When he gently lifted a multi-ton slab of rubble to free a trapped ninja with a mere thought, using the Devapath's repulsive force, a collective gasp went through the rescue teams. He hadn't even formed a hand seal. He'd just willed it. The gratitude in the rescued man's eyes was mingled with unmistakable terror. That night, in a hastily erected medical tent, the weight truly descended. Tsunade, her own chakra depleted from mass healing, studied him not as a grandmother figure, but as the Godame Hokage and the world's greatest medic nin. The Rinnegan, she stated, her voice gravelly. Physiologically, it's integrating with your optic nerves and brain in ways I cannot comprehend. Your chakra reserves, they're not just large anymore, Naruto. They're geological. But the drain from simply maintaining those eyes, she shook her head. You're going to need to eat enough for 20 men. And sleep. Which I doubt you'll get. Can you turn them off? Naruto asked, the plea clear in his layered voice. Tsunade exchanged a look with Kakashi. There's no precedent. For Madara, it was a permanent state. For Nagato, they were transplanted. Yours awoke from within. You must learn control, boy. Or they will consume you. Alone later, Naruto tried. He sat on his cot, squeezing his eyes shut. But the vision didn't stop. He saw through his eyelids, the chakra of the guards outside the tent, the scurrying mice in the earth, the slow, sad pulse of the moon's reflected light. He was drowning in sight. He reached inward. Kurama? You in there, buddy? A deep, distant rumble. Not words. A feeling of profound exhaustion, of a fundamental change. The fox's chakra was there, vast as ever, but it was different now. Integrated. It was no longer a separate entity raging behind bars, it was the foundation upon which the Rinnegan stood. They had merged at the brink of death, and there was no going back. I'm tired, Kit, Kurama's voice finally came, softer than ever. What we did, it changed things. These eyes, they see the truth of all things. Even truths you might not want to see. Be careful. The first true test came at the emergency 5 Kage summit, held in the less damaged hidden sand. Naruto, at Kakashi's side, was an unofficial attendee. The tension was a physical thing. Gaara, his friend, looked at him with calm understanding, but also the sharp calculation of a Kage. The Tsuchikage, Anoki, eyed him with pure, unvarnished suspicion. The Mizukage, Jojuro, was wary. The Reikage, A, was thunderously silent, his massive arms crossed. The threat is ended, Kakashi began, his tone diplomatic. Thanks to the valor of many, led by Naruto Uzumaki. Led by a weapon we no longer understand, Anoki cut in, his gaze boring into Naruto. The Rinnegan. The power to create and destroy moons. To control life and death. And it rests in the hands of a passionate young man from a village with a history of producing existential threats. Naruto flinched. The words stung, but he saw the fear behind them. He saw Inoki's deep-seated trauma from the days of Madara, the village-first paranoia that was his lifelong burden. Naruto is a hero of the allied shinobi forces, Gaara stated, his voice cool sand. His heart has never wavered. Hearts can change under the weight of such power, the Mizukage said quietly. Nagato of the Rain started with a dream of peace, too. I'm right here, Naruto said, his voice echoing slightly in the chamber. All eyes snapped to him. His Rinnegan seemed to drink the light. I'm not Nagato. I'm not Madara. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. And I just want to protect my friends and bring peace. The Raikage finally spoke, his voice a low boom. Peace. A noble goal. But with those eyes, peace becomes a word you impose. How do we know your version of peace is the one we want? How do we know you won't look at our villages one day and decide we're an obstacle to it? The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswerable. It wasn't an accusation of malice, but of inevitability. It was the central fear. Naruto felt a hot surge of frustration. He wanted to shout, to argue. But the Rinnegan showed him the complex web of their emotions, Gaara's steadfast support frayed by political pressure, Inoki's genuine terror for his people's sovereignty, the Raikage's brutal pragmatism. They weren't villains. They were leaders, afraid. And he was the thing they feared. I will prove it, Naruto said, his fists clenched at his sides. Not with words. With my life. I'll use this power to rebuild, to help. Not to control. See that you do, Inoki grumbled. For all our sakes. The return to Konoha was no respite. The village's reaction was a microcosm of the world's. Some cheered their savior, their sun god. Others crossed the street to avoid him, whispering. Children stared, fascinated and frightened. A new faction, a cult of worshippers, had already sprung up at the gates, calling him the Sage Reborn and prostrating themselves. It made him sick. He sought solace with Irika, at the ramen stand. But even Irika's warm smile was strained, his eyes constantly drawn to Naruto's. The usual, Naruto? Tochi asked, his voice unusually tentative. As Naruto slurped the noodles, the Rinnegan involuntarily activated, analyzing the broth's molecular composition, the flow of steam, the wear on the wooden bowl. The simple joy of the meal was buried under data. He put the bowl down, his appetite gone. It's hard, isn't it? Irika said softly. To be seen as something more than human. I don't want to be more. Naruto burst out, a crack in his godly veneer. I just wanted to be Hokage. To be acknowledged. Not this. I can hear people's heartbeats from 3 streets away, Irika-sensei. I can see the illness in old man Hiroshi's lungs. I see too much, and I can't make it stop. Tears, clear and cold, traced lines down his cheeks. The Rinnegan did not cry human tears. Irika placed a firm, rounding hand on his shoulder. Then you must learn. Not just to control the eyes, Naruto. To control the burden. And you don't have to do it alone. Remember who you are. The boy who never gave up. That's more important than any eyes. It was the anchor he needed. The next morning, he went to the Hokage's office. Kakashi and Tsunade were there, along with Shikamaru, looking exhausted but analytical. I need to train, Naruto declared. Not to get stronger. To get precise. I need to learn everything about the Rinnegan, its paths, its costs. And I need to learn how to be me again. Kakashi nodded. We anticipated this. Your training will be threefold. First, with me and Yamato, for chakra control and sealing theory, to understand what's happening to you. Second, with Tsunade-sama, for physiological and medical insight, to keep your body from breaking down. And third. The door opened. Sasuke stood there, his Rinnegan also active, a silent challenge in his gaze. You'll spar with the only other person alive who has a frame of reference, Kakashi finished. Sasuke walked in. Your chakra is chaotic, dope. Like a star-going supernova. You're leaking power with every breath. You'll burn out or blow something up if you don't learn focus. Naruto met his gaze. Rinnegan to Rinnegan. For the first time, he saw past Sasuke's cool exterior to the turmoil beneath, a mirror of his own. The burden of power, the fear of legacy, the desperate desire to carve a path that was their own. All right, team, Naruto said, a faint, real smile touching his lips for the first time since the awakening. Show me what you know. Their first sparring session was not held in a training ground, but in a sealed, barrier-protected valley far from the village. They stood across from each other, the wind howling around them. Don't use the big guns, Sasuke instructed. Just the basic attraction and repulsion of the Deva path. Focus it to a single point. A pinprick. Naruto nodded, focusing. He raised a hand, willing a gentle push. Instead, a massive, invisible tsunami of force erupted from him. It tore a canyon through the earth 50 meters wide, uprooting trees and shattering rock faces half a mile away. The recoil sent him skidding backwards, his arm screaming with pain, blood trickling from his nose. Sasuke didn't flinch. Too much. You're thinking with your chakra, not your mind. You have to visualize the force. It's not a tidal wave. It's a fingertip. They tried again. And again. Each failure was catastrophic in scale, but gradually, the devastation lessened. From canyon, to gully, to trench, to a simple deep hole. The strain, however, was immense. Naruto's body, for all its stamina, was not naturally meant for this. His muscles ached, his head pounded, his vision swam with overstimulation. During a break, he doubled over, vomiting nothing but clear fluid. Sasuke tossed him a canteen. Your body is rejecting the strain. The Rinnegan is a foreign genome rewriting you from the inside. You're fighting yourself. I have to master it, Naruto gasped. I can't. I can't be a danger to everyone. Sasuke was quiet for a moment. They fear you, he said, not unkindly. They will always fear you now. The question is what you do with that fear. You can try to erase it with kindness, which they will mistake for weakness or deception. Or you can accept it, and let your actions, over a lifetime, write a different story. Since when did you get so wise? Naruto grunted, sitting up. Since I got a power that could end the world and realized I didn't want to, Sasuke replied bluntly. Now get up. We're working on the Preta path. You need to learn to absorb chakra, not just blast it. As the day wore on, a fragile synergy emerged. Sasuke, with his analytical mind and experience, provided the framework. Naruto, with his boundless, adaptable chakra and instinct, provided the raw material. They were two halves of a whole, teaching the god in the other how to be human. That evening, exhausted but with a sliver of hard-won control, Naruto returned to the village. At the gates, the small crowd of worshippers knelt. "Oh sage! Bless us with your vision." He stopped. He looked at them with his terrible, beautiful eyes. He didn't see devotees. He saw desperate people, hungry for meaning, for a savior in a broken world. He saw a mother clutching a sick child, hoping for a miracle. He walked over to her. The crowd held its breath. He knelt, ignoring the prostration. His Rinnegan studied the child's faint, feverish chakra. Without a word, he placed a hand on the child's forehead. Not with the Rinnegan's godlike power, but with the gentle, precise chakra control Tsunade had drilled into him, a human touch, amplified by divine perception. He neutralized the infection, guided the small body's energy to heal. The child's eyes fluttered open, the fever gone. The mother wept, grasping Naruto's hand. Thank you. Thank you, sage. Naruto stood, his expression solemn. I'm not a sage. I'm a ninja of Konoha. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. He looked at the crowd. Don't worship me. Trust me. Or don't. But see me. He walked through the gates, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. It wasn't a solution. The fear, the worship, the political storms, they would all still come. But it was a first step. A declaration. In his apartment, alone, he finally managed it. Through sheer exhaustion and will, he forced the concentric circles to still, to fade. The world dimmed, the overwhelming symphony of chakra fading to a distant murmur. His own, familiar blue eyes reflected back at him from the dark window. The relief was so profound it brought real, hot, human tears to his eyes. He had found the off switch, if only for a little while. But as he lay in the dark, he knew it was a reprieve, not a victory. The world was changing. Enemies would rise to challenge the god. Friends would struggle to see the man. And within him, the divine power in the human heart waged a silent, endless war. The journey of the Rinnegan had truly begun. And the first lesson was the heaviest, that to bear the eyes of a sage, he must first learn to carry the weight of a world's hope, fear, and destiny without buckling. The boy who sought acknowledgement now longed for the obscurity he'd once cursed. But the path was set. All he could do was walk it, one step at a time, as Naruto Uzumaki. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2 would begin with Naruto's continued training, the political fallout intensifying, and the first emergence of a new antagonist, not a physical foe, but a philosophical one, a radical faction from a ruined land who sees Naruto not as a savior to be worshipped, but as a tyrant to be assassinated, believing his very existence stagnates humanity's own evolution. The internal and external conflicts deepen. Next. Chapter 2, The Path of Gravity. Word count, 3,480. Control was a cliff face, and Naruto dangled by his fingertips. The 2 weeks following his declaration at the gate were a grueling cycle of collapse and recalibration. His body was a hostile country, its new borders drawn by the Rinnegan silent, cellular revolution. The training with Tsunade was the most physically brutal. In the heart of Konoha's highest security medical laboratory, surrounded by scrolls of forbidden anatomy and humming chakra sensing arrays, she treated him like a unique and volatile pathology. Your chakra pathways aren't just expanding, they're metastasizing, she stated, her glowing hands hovering over his bare back. A three-dimensional chakra map shimmered in the air beside them, a constellation of furious gold and alien violet. See here? The tenketsu points around your ocular nerves have fused into a continuous channel. It's drawing energy directly from your core, bypassing the 8-gate system entirely. It's efficient and terrifying. If this flow backfires, it won't just blind you. It'll liquefy your frontal lobe. Naruto lay on the examination table, the cool sterile air doing little to soothe the burning behind his eyes. So what's the fix, Granny? There is no fix, you idiot, she grumbled, but her touch was gentle. We reinforce. We build dams and canals to handle the flood. Your diet is now a prescription. High-density chakra foods, rare herbs from Shikatsu forest. You'll drink soldier pill infusions like they're water. And sleep. 8 hours, under a sedation seal if I have to order it. She fixed him with a stern look. Your power of friendship doesn't work on mitochondrial fatigue. Your cells are aging and rejuvenating at 10 times the normal rate. You push too hard, and you'll look older than Kakashi by 30. The training with Kakashi and Yamato was a cerebral torment. In a sealed underground chamber lined with Uzumaki-style suppression fuinjutsu, they worked on containment. The Rinnegan is not a tool, Naruto, Kakashi said, his single eye serious. It is a state of being. You can't just use the Deva path. You must become the axis of gravity around you. The moment you think of it as a technique separate from yourself, you lose fine control. Yamato's wood clones created increasingly complex obstacle courses, shifting labyrinths, grasping branches, projectile barrages. Naruto's task was not to destroy them, but to navigate using only the subtlest pushes and pulls of the Deva path. A single misstep, a moment of frustration, and a wood clone would dissolve into splinters, the recoil slamming Naruto into a wall. Too much. Yamato would call out, his voice echoing. You're thinking smash, not guide. One afternoon, tasked with using a repulsive force to thread a needle held by a wood clone 20 meters away, Naruto's focus shattered. The needle, the thread, the clone's hand, and a 2-meter section of the stone wall behind it were blasted into dust. The backlash was a hot wire shoved up his arm. He cried out, clutching his seizing shoulder, the Rinnegan spinning wildly in his skull, showing him the microscopic fractures now racing through his own humerus. Kakashi was at his side in an instant, a green blow from his own less proficient medical ninjutsu stemming the damage. Your emotions are the throttle, Naruto. Your chakra is the engine. The Rinnegan is a hypersensitive steering mechanism. If your heart races, the whole system goes haywire. The most vital, and most volatile, training was with Sasuke. Their sessions in the isolated valley had become a daily ritual of mutual understanding and unspoken competition. Sasuke was a harsh, brilliant instructor. He had mastered his Rinnegan through cold intellect and sheer force of will, treating it like a weapon to be calibrated. Naruto's approach was intuitive, emotional, holistic. They clashed, not in ideology now, but in methodology. Your Preta path absorption is sloppy, Sasuke criticized. He launched a stream of fire, which Naruto desperately tried to absorb. He succeeded, but the foreign chakra burned like acid in his own network, causing him to stagger. You're a sponge, not a filter. You're taking in the malice, the intent, along with the energy. You have to dissect it at the moment of contact. Separate the fuel from the poison. Easy for you to say, you're used to swallowing hate. Naruto shot back, breathing heavily. Sasuke didn't deny it. A shadow passed behind his Rinnegan. Exactly. So learn from my expertise. It was during one of these sessions that the first true fissure in the world appeared. A messenger hawk, bearing the mark of the Hokage, streaked into the valley. Sasuke intercepted the scroll, his eyes scanning it quickly. His expression, always guarded, turned to stone. What is it? Naruto asked, letting the gentle gravitational field he'd been maintaining around a floating boulder collapse. The land of valleys, Sasuke said, his voice flat. A minor nation bordering the land of earth. There's been a coup. The ruling daimyo, a moderate allied with Konoha and the Earth daimyo, has been overthrown. So? Civil wars happen, Naruto said, though a cold pit was forming in his stomach. The revolutionary faction calls themselves the Unbound. Their first public decree, Sasuke looked up, meeting Naruto's gaze, is a denunciation of you. They've declared you the Gilded Chain, a false messiah whose very existence makes the world reliant on a single, capricious god. They say true peace can only come when humanity is freed from the shadow of demigods. Naruto stared, the words washing over him. They didn't fear him as a monster. They rejected him as a concept. It was a new kind of pain, intellectual and profound. Do they have a point? Sasuke snorted, a dry, humorless sound. They're idealists with blood on their hands. The coup wasn't peaceful. The Daimos family is dead. Their manifesto says that relying on you, or even fearing you, stifles human potential. That we must be allowed to fight our own battles, make our own mistakes, even if it means more war in the short term. They've asked the other nations to join them in a pact of mortal sovereignty, to formally renounce your authority and any who ally with you. The political bomb had detonated. The emergency summit that followed in Konoha's war room was charged with a different kind of tension. Kakashi, Tsunade, Shikamaru, and the Jonin commander stood around the map. Naruto was present, a silent, looming question mark. Anoki is being coy, Shikamaru said, moving a piece on the map representing the land of Earth. He hasn't endorsed the Unbound, but he hasn't condemned them either. His statement says, the concerns of mortal governance are for mortals to decide. It's a diplomatic wink. The Reikage has outright rejected the pact, Tsunade said, crossing her arms. He calls it treasonous nonsense in a time of recovery. But his reasoning is practical, not philosophical. He doesn't want to alienate Konoha or you, Naruto. He sees your power as a necessary deterrent. The Mizukage is wavering, Kakashi added, his voice weary. The Bloody Mist's history makes them deeply suspicious of any centralized, overwhelming power. Gaara is with us, but the Sand Council is pressuring him. They see a chance to lead a coalition of mortal nations if they distance themselves. Naruto listened, the Rinnegan thankfully dormant. He felt like a chess piece that had grown sentient and didn't like the game. What do they want me to do? Disappear? In essence, yes, Shikamaru said, sighing. What a drag. They want you to publicly renounce any intention of interfering in world affairs, to be a weapon of Konoha alone, or better yet, to seclude yourself. They want the age of heroes to end so the age of politicians can resume. And the land of valleys? The Daimos family? Naruto asked, his jaw tight. The Unbound are consolidating power, Kakashi said. There are reports of purges. Anyone loyal to the old regime, or suspected of deference to the divine, is being imprisoned or executed. The room was quiet. The moral line was clear, but the political one was a minefield. Intervening would be exactly the divine imposition the Unbound warned against. It would validate their entire argument and potentially turn other nations against Konoha. Not intervening meant allowing a murderous regime to solidify its power over a helpless population. We can't just let them kill people, Naruto said, his voice low. We have no treaty obligation to intervene in a sovereign nation's internal conflict, Shikamaru countered, though he looked pained. Doing so is an act of war. It sets a precedent that Konoha, with its god, can overthrow any government it dislikes. So we do nothing? Naruto's fists were clenched. We do what nations have always done, Kakashi said, his Hokage's mask firmly in place. We pursue diplomatic channels. We apply economic pressure. We offer asylum to refugees. We do not send in the Rinnegan. Naruto left the meeting feeling caged. The power to stop suffering was in his hands, but wielding it would cause greater suffering. It was Nagato's dilemma, echoing across a generation. Was this the true test of the Rinnegan? Not mastering its powers, but mastering the temptation to use them? His answer came 3 days later, not from a council, but from a whisper on the wind. A refugee, a young girl from the land of valleys who had escaped through underground networks, was brought to Konoha's intelligence division. She was malnourished, traumatized. Hinata, using her gentle nature, managed to get her story. Naruto, visiting the hospital to see the girl, overheard her whispering to Hinata. They have a cage. In the main square. They call it the divinity's cage. They throw people in who still pray for the sage of Konoha to save them. They leave them there to starve. To show that no god is coming. Hinata's Byakugan saw the change in Naruto before anyone else. A terrifying stillness came over him. The air in the corridor grew dense, heavier. The light seemed to dim as if drawn toward him. His blue eyes were gone, replaced by the serene, terrifying circles of the Rinnegan. Naruto-kun, Hinata whispered, her voice full of fear for him, not of him. He didn't speak. He turned and walked away, his steps measured, each footfall seeming to echo with finality. He went straight to the Hokage's office, bypassing the secretaries. He opened the doors to find Kakashi in mid-conversation with the Fire Daimyo's envoy. Naruto? Kakashi said, sensing the shift immediately. I'm going to the land of valleys, Naruto stated. His voice held no anger, no plea. It was a declaration of fact, quiet and immovable as bedrock. Naruto, we discussed this, Kakashi began. You discussed. I listened. Now, I'm telling you. There is a cage in a square where people are starving for believing in a better world. I am not a god. But I am a ninja of Konoha, and I believe in that better world too. I won't overthrow their government. I won't impose my peace. The Rinnegan glowed softly. I'm just going to break a cage. Kakashi saw the unyielding resolve. He saw the shadow of Minato, of Kushina, of Jiraiya in that stance. He also saw the apocalyptic power barely held in check. Forbidding him would be pointless. He could go alone, without sanction, and that would be worse. A surgical strike, Kakashi said, his mind racing. In and out. Your objective is the cage and the prisoners only. You do not engage the unbound leadership. You do not attack their forces unless directly attacked. You are a rescue mission, not an invasion. Is that clear? Naruto nodded. Clear. Take backup. Someone to ground you. Someone to handle logistics and ensure you stick to the objective. Sasuke, Naruto said without hesitation. Within the hour, they stood at Konoha's gates. Sasuke, equipped for a swift journey, looked at Naruto. You know this will be seen as an act of war. It will prove their point. Let it, Naruto said, his Rinnegan fixed on the horizon. Some points aren't worth proving if you have to let people die to do it. I'd rather be a gilded chain than a silent ghost. They moved like a storm front. Naruto, using a refined version of the Deva path, manipulated gravity around them, making their bodies nearly weightless. They soared over the landscape, covering in hours what would take days. Sasuke guided them, his own Rinnegan scanning for patrols and traps. The Land of Valleys was a place of steep gorges and fortified cliffside towns. The capital, Karuwa, was built into the face of a vast mesa. As they approached under the cover of twilight, Naruto saw it. In the central square, a crude iron cage, crowded with emaciated figures. A crowd of unbound supporters, clad in dun-colored robes, was chanting and throwing rotten food. The scene was one of petty, human cruelty, magnified by ideology. 4 guards on the cage. 24 armed militia in the square. More in the surrounding buildings, Sasuke murmured, his Sharingan active beneath the Rinnegan. The cage is rigged with explosive tags. A dead man's switch, likely held by the captain over there by the fountain. Naruto absorbed the information. His mind, enhanced by the Rinnegan's processing ability, formulated a plan in an instant. I'll handle the cage and the switch. You neutralize the guards and create a distraction on the east side. We extract north, into the gorge. Sasuke gave a curt nod. Don't get creative. They descended from the darkening sky like twin avatars. Sasuke landed first, a crackle of Chidori electricity and a blur of movement as he disarmed and disabled the 4 cage guards with precise strikes. On the east side, a wave of Amaterasu flames erupted against a stone wall, drawing screams and the attention of the militia. All eyes turned to the black flames. In that moment of distraction, Naruto landed silently in the center of the square, between the cage and the unbound captain. The captain, a sharp-faced man with fanatical eyes, fumbled for the trigger in his hand. Stop. Stand down, false god, the captain shrieked. Naruto looked at him. With the Rinnegan, he saw the man's chakra, a knotted mess of zealotry, fear, and genuine, if twisted, conviction. He wasn't evil. He was terribly, tragically sure. I'm not here for you, Naruto said, his voice carrying a gravitational weight that silenced the chaos. He raised a hand, not toward the captain, but toward the cage. Shinra Tensei. But it was not the world-shattering repulsion of pain. It was a precise, localized, and impossibly gentle unmaking. The iron bars of the cage didn't bend or fly apart. They simply separated at the molecular level, dissolving into a fine, rust-colored dust that settled like mist on the ground. The explosive tags fizzled into harmless paper. The prisoners, weak and terrified, stared in disbelief. The square was utterly silent. The captain stared at the dust where his leverage had been. His fanaticism curdled into rage. You see, he screamed to the crowd. You see his power? He disrespects our sovereignty, our will. He is the chain. Kill him. A dozen militiamen, emboldened, charged, kunai and swords gleaming. Naruto didn't move. He closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, the Rinnegan pulsed. Bancho Tenin. A gentle, irresistible pull. Not strong enough to slam the attackers into the ground, but just enough to throw them off balance. They stumbled, their charge becoming a clumsy, collapsing pile. Their weapons clattered to the stones, pulled from their grips by the same subtle force. I am not your enemy, Naruto said, his voice echoing. I am not your god. I am a man who saw a cage and could not let it stand. He turned to the freed prisoners. Can you walk? They nodded, weeping, hope dawning in their hollow eyes. Go. North, into the gorge. You will find safe passage. As the prisoners stumbled away, the captain, in a final act of defiance, drew a knife and lunged at Naruto's back. Naruto didn't even turn. A slight, unconscious pulse of the Deva path, a personal gravity field, made the man's arm feel like it was swinging through solid lead. The knife dropped from nerveless fingers. Sasuke reappeared at Naruto's side. Militia is converging. Time to go. Naruto took one last look at the captain, kneeling in despair and fury, at the crowd watching with a mixture of terror and awe. He had not fought a battle. He had performed a miracle. And in doing so, he had perhaps done exactly what the Unbound feared. He had made their struggle, their ideology, seem small and petty against the backdrop of effortless, divine power. It felt like a failure. They vanished into the gorge as the first arrows began to fall, harmlessly deflected by an invisible field. The mission was a tactical success. The cage was broken, the prisoners freed without a single lethal injury on either side. But as they flew back towards Konoha, the weight on Naruto's soul was heavier than any gravity he could command. He had acted from compassion. He had used minimal, precise force. And yet, he had played directly into the narrative of the god imposing his will. Sasuke, flying beside him, broke the silence. They will call it the miracle of Koruwa. The prisoners will spread the tale. The Unbound will use it as proof of your tyranny. The world will fracture further. You know that, right? Naruto stared ahead, the wind drying the cold, clear tears on his Rinnegan-enhanced cheeks. I know, he said, his voice barely a whisper. But I couldn't leave them in that cage, Sasuke. Knowing what I know, seeing what I see, in the end, I'm still just Naruto Uzumaki. And that's the one thing this power can't change. He wasn't sure if he was trying to convince Sasuke, or himself. The path of gravity was not just about controlling forces. It was about bearing the weight of impossible choices. And he had just taken his first, fateful step. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 will explore the devastating political fallout of the miracle of Koruwa. The world fractures into ideological blocks. A new, more dangerous enemy emerges from the shadows, one who doesn't seek to reject the Rinnegan's power, but to steal it, believing they can wield it without Naruto's human weakness. The internal strain on Naruto grows as the first physical costs of the Rinnegan manifest, and he must confront a haunting truth: to save the world, he may have to sacrifice the very humanity he's fighting to keep. Next. Chapter 3, The Fracture of Mortals. Word count, 3,620. The miracle of Koruwa spread like wildfire on a bed of ideological gunpowder. It wasn't a news story, it was a parable, and everyone interpreted it to suit their own gospel. In the refugee camps on the border of the Land of Fire, the freed prisoners and their families spoke of a golden-eyed savior who descended from the stars and turned their prison to dust with a whisper. They spoke of his gentle voice, his refusal to strike back. A new, more fervent cult sprang up overnight, the Pathfinders, who saw Naruto not as a god to worship, but as a living ideal to follow, a compass point towards a compassionate world. They began a quiet pilgrimage towards Konoha's borders. In the strongholds of the Unbound, the story was one of divine terrorism. They broadcast images of the dissolved cage, of their militiamen clumsily falling over without being touched, of their captain's humiliated face. See the gilded chain's velvet fist, their propagandists cried. He does not conquer with armies, he dismantles with a thought. He makes our courage look like farce, our sovereignty like dust. He doesn't need to kill us. He just needs to show us we are nothing. Their ranks swelled with nationalists and those who feared irrelevance in a world of demigods. In the halls of power, the reaction was a cold, strategic chill. The Emergency 5 Kage Summit reconvened via crystal ball transmission. This time, Naruto was not invited. Kakashi stood alone in the Hokage's chamber, the projected images of the other Kage shimmering before him. Anoki's hologram was the first to speak, his voice brittle with age and anger. A surgical strike, you called it, Hataki. A rescue mission. You sent a living deity into a sovereign nation to undo the legal actions of its recognized government. That is not shinobi intervention. That is an act of God. Where does it end? If a daimyo raises taxes too high, will the sage of Konoha appear to burn the tax ledgers? If two nations go to war, will he simply freeze their armies in place until they get bored? The Mizukage, Jojuro, shifted uncomfortably. The humanitarian outcome is positive. Lives were saved. But the precedent, Lord Hokage, is untenable. My council is in an uproar. They ask, will Konoha be the judge of what constitutes a humanitarian crisis? Will its weapon be the jury and executioner? The Raikage, cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing through the transmission. Spare me the philosophy. You all sat in that room and heard about the cage. Would any of you have done differently if you had his power? The Unbound are murderous fanatics hiding behind pretty words. Naruto Uzumaki showed restraint. More than I would have. That is precisely the problem, Raikage. Anoki shot back. It is not about his restraint today. It is about the power itself, existing outside any system of checks, outside any law but its wielder's fleeting conscience. He is one bad day, one personal tragedy, away from becoming the very chain he denies being. Gaara's calm voice cut through the rising tension. His hologram's eyes were shadowed. The Sand Council has voted. We will not sign the Unbound's Pact of Mortal Sovereignty. However, he paused, a weight in the silence. We must formally propose the creation of an international charter. A set of laws, agreed upon by all nations, that delineates the acceptable use of catastrophic personal power. A code for gods, if you will. And until such a charter is ratified, we must urge Konoha to commit that Naruto Uzumaki will not undertake further unilateral extraterritorial actions. It was a polite, political cage. A demand for Naruto to be leashed by the very world he'd saved so many times. Kakashi's single eye narrowed. Naruto is not a weapon in Konoha's armory to be loaned out by committee. He is a citizen of the Leaf, a jonin of this village. His actions, while extraordinary, fall under my authority as Hokage. Then perhaps, Anoki said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper, the world must reconsider what it means to be allied with Konoha. An alliance implies equals. How can we be equal with a village that holds a strategic asset of infinite value? How is this different from the old days of Biju as weapons, only now the weapon has a mind of its own and answers to no one but itself and its Hokage? The word blockade was not spoken. But it hung in the static of the transmission. The meeting ended with nothing resolved but everything broken. The shinobi world was cleaving into factions, Konoha and its steadfast allies, a shrinking list, the mortal sovereignty bloc led by the land of earth and gaining sympathy in the mist, and the non-aligned nations watching with terrified fascination. For Naruto, the political storm was a distant thunder compared to the tempest within. The physical cost of Kurua was now coming due. Tsunade's warning about cellular stress was not theoretical. He woke in the hospital, disoriented. The ceiling was too bright. Sakura was by his bedside, her medical blow enveloping his right arm. He looked down. His skin, from fingertips to shoulder, was crisscrossed with fine, hairline cracks, like porcelain that had been shattered and poorly glued back together. They glowed with a faint, inner violet light. Stress fractures, Sakura said, her voice tight with controlled worry. In your bones, your chakra pathways, even your dermis. Using the Rinnegan isn't just chakra exhaustion, Naruto. It's like forcing your entire biology to operate at a frequency it wasn't built for. You're a porcelain cup holding a hurricane. He tried to flex his fingers. A sharp, electric pain shot up to his spine. How long? With intensive regeneration therapy? A week before you can hold a kunai. 2 before you can think about channeling significant chakra. She met his Rinnegan eyes, he hadn't the strength to deactivate them. You have to slow down. Your healing factor is working overtime just to keep you from falling apart at the seams. Worse than the pain was the silence. The deep, abiding silence where Kurama's voice had been. The fox's presence was now a vast, slumbering foundation, like a mountain range beneath his soul. He could draw on the power, but the grumpy, familiar consciousness was submerged, integrated too deeply for conversation. Naruto had never felt more alone. Confined to bed, he was forced to be a spectator to his own life. Shikamaru visited, bringing scrolls of intelligence reports. The Unbound were now receiving covert support, surplus weapons from Earth, tactical advisors from disaffected factions in Mist. They were hardening their ideology into a military doctrine centered on anti-divine warfare. They were researching Kenjutsu, forbidden seals designed to drain or negate alien chakra. They're not trying to beat you in a fight, Shikamaru explained, sighing. They're trying to build a theory that makes you irrelevant. A world where your power has a counter, so it's no longer supreme. It's annoyingly smart. Hinata visited daily, bringing food and quiet company. She didn't flinch from his cracked skin or his glowing eyes. She would simply sit, her Byakugan seeing the chaotic, beautiful, painful maelstrom of his chakra system, and offer a silent, steadying presence. One afternoon, as she adjusted his pillows, she spoke softly. Do you remember, during the war, when you gave everyone your chakra? You were a beacon. A sun that connected us all. She looked at him, her lavender eyes full of empathy. Now, the world wants to put that sun in a box with rules. They're afraid of being burned. They don't understand that a sun's nature is to give light, not to choose who it warms. Her words were a bomb. But they couldn't heal the new fissure that appeared next. Sasuke's visits were brief and intense. One evening, he stood at the foot of Naruto's bed, his expression grim. There's a rumor. From the black markets in the land of silence. Naruto pushed himself up gingerly. What kind of rumor? A buyer. Extremely wealthy, extremely secretive. They're not interested in the Unbound's ideology. They're interested in biology. They're offering a king's ransom for any physical sample from you. Blood, tissue, hair. Sasuke's Rinnegan met his. They've specifically asked for ocular fluid. A cold dread, deeper than any physical pain, settled in Naruto's gut. Someone wants to replicate the Rinnegan? Or transplant it, Sasuke said flatly. My eyes were a transplant from Itachi. Yours awakened. Someone out there thinks the power is a commodity, not a destiny. They see the divine not as a threat to reject, but as a tool to acquire. This is a different kind of enemy, Naruto. The Unbound fear your power. This one covets it. The world wasn't just fracturing politically. It was spawning new kinds of shadows, all drawn to the light of his existence. It was Irika who brought the final, personal blow. He came in looking older, carrying a stack of letters. He sat heavily in the chair by the bed. "These are from the academy," Irika said, his voice thick. "Parents. A petition, signed by over half the families of current students and prospective enrollees." Naruto's heart, already heavy, sank further. A petition for what? Irika wouldn't meet his eyes. They're requesting that you be formally banned from the academy grounds. That you not be involved in any future Chunin exams as a proctor or observer. They cite unpredictable divine energy and psychological distress for the children. Irika finally looked up, his own eyes glistening. "They're afraid, Naruto. They see your cracked skin, they hear the stories, and they're afraid your very presence is a danger to their kids." The room spun. This was the acknowledgement he'd craved his entire childhood, twisted into its most horrific form. He was not the demon fox to be shunned, he was a radioactive god to be quarantined. The village that was his home was building a glass wall around him. He didn't cry. The Rinnegan seemed to absorb the shock, turning his anguish into a cold, clear prism of understanding. This was the true path of the sage, absolute, isolating clarity. "I understand," Naruto heard himself say, his voice detached. "Naruto, no, I fought them," Irika began. "It's okay, Irika-sensei," Naruto interrupted, offering a smile that didn't reach his cosmic eyes. "They're parents. They're protecting their kids. It's what good parents do." The words tasted like ash. That night, under a moon that his eyes could see was pocked with the scars of ancient battles, he made a decision. He waited until the hospital was quiet. Ignoring the shrieking protests of his body, he swung his legs out of bed. The cracks on his arm pulsed violet. He stood, wobbling, and shuffled to the window. He needed to see it. Not with the Rinnegan's overwhelming perception, but with his own heart. He focused, with immense effort, and pushed. The concentric circles faded, receded. His familiar, sky-blue eyes reflected back in the dark glass. The world became blessedly dim, blessedly simple. He saw the rooftops of Konoha, the Hokage monument, the warm lights of homes. His home. And he knew, with a certainty that broke him and remade him in the same instant, that to protect it, he might have to leave it. A soft chakra signature appeared behind him. He didn't need the Rinnegan to know who it was. "You're thinking of leaving," Kakashi said, leaning against the doorframe. Naruto didn't turn. "The village is fracturing because of me. The world is moving towards war, a cold war, maybe, but a war with me is the central dispute. I'm a hazard to the academy kids. I'm a political crisis for you. As long as I'm here, in the heart of Konoha, I'm a target and a weapon of mass destabilization." "Running away isn't the answer," Kakashi said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'm not running," Naruto said, finally turning. His blue eyes were fierce, blazing with the old, human fire. "I'm changing the battlefield. If I'm a symbol, I can't let that symbol be trapped in one village. It gets twisted. I need to be out there. Where I can act without dragging Konoha into every decision. Where I can help people without it being an act of God sanctioned by the Hokage. You'll be hunted. The unbound will see it as weakness. The covetous will see it as opportunity." "Let them try," Naruto said, and for the first time in weeks, it was the old, confident Naruto speaking. "I'll have Sasuke with me. We'll travel. We'll see the world not from a Hokage's desk or a hospital bed, but from the ground. We'll help where we can, without banners. And maybe we'll find a way to make this power mean something that doesn't end with cages or charters." Kakashi was silent for a long time. He saw the resolve, the painful maturity that had been forged in the crucible of divinity. This was not a boy's impulse. This was a man's terrible, necessary choice. "The council will never approve," Kakashi finally said. "I'm not asking them," Naruto replied. "I'm asking you. My Hokage. My sensei." Kakashi closed his eye, a lifetime of loss and duty weighing on him. He saw the ghost of Minato, trusting him with a newborn. He saw the ghost of Obito, lost to darkness. He saw the ghost of Rin, dying for the village. He saw the living, breathing future of the world standing before him, cracked and glorious and willing to sacrifice his home for its sake. He opened his eye. "You will remain a Jonin of Konoha. You will maintain regular, encrypted communication via toads. You will have a recall code for absolute emergencies. And you will take Yamato with you for the first month, until your body is stable and you have a mobile containment protocol." Kakashi's voice became the Hokage's, steel wrapped in velvet. "This is not exile. This is an extended, unsanctioned reconnaissance mission into the state of the world. Do you understand, Naruto Uzumaki?" A real, grateful smile broke across Naruto's face. "Yes, sir." The preparations were made in utter secrecy. Only a handful knew: Kakashi, Tsunade, Shizune, Yamato, Sasuke, and Sakura. On the morning of his discharge, Naruto stood at the main gate in simple, sturdy traveler's clothes, a hooded cloak obscuring his features. His arm was still bandaged beneath the sleeve. Sasuke waited, a pack slung over his shoulder, his expression unreadable. Yamato stood a little apart, ready to provide wooden shelter and suppression seals on the journey. Sakura hugged Naruto fiercely, careful of his injuries. You come back in one piece, you hear me? Or I'll heal you just so I can kill you myself. Hinata gave him a small, cloth-wrapped bundle. Food for the road, she whispered, her fingers brushing his. Come home safe, Naruto-kun. Kakashi stood before him. No speeches. He simply placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, the weight of the village, of a father's pride, and a leader's fear in that touch. Remember who you are. Naruto nodded, his throat tight. He turned and looked back one last time at the village bathed in the morning sun, at the faces of his monument. I'll be back. I'll be Hokage. But first, I have to learn how to be a god who deserves a village. As they passed through the gate, a small, ragged group was waiting on the roadside. The pathfinders, a dozen men, women, and children from the land of valleys and other broken places. They didn't prostrate themselves. They simply bowed their heads in respect as he passed, their eyes full of a faith that asked for nothing. One of them, an old man with eyes milky from blindness, spoke in a rasp. The path is walked one step at a time, sage. Even for you. Naruto paused. He didn't activate the Rinnegan. He looked at the man with his human blue eyes. I'm just a traveler, old man. Trying to find the path like everyone else. He pulled his hood up and turned south, towards the borders and the vast, fractured world beyond. Sasuke fell into step beside him, Yamato taking up the rear. They hadn't gone a mile when Sasuke spoke, his voice low. Where to first? Naruto didn't hesitate. He'd seen the reports, the hidden pain. The land of rivers. The last report said the drought there is turning into a famine. The local lords are hoarding grain. The unbound are trying to recruit the desperate by blaming the divine imbalance for their woes. A famine isn't an enemy you can fight with Shinra Tensei, Sasuke observed. No, Naruto agreed, a new determination squaring his shoulders. But maybe with the Ninjendo, the human path, I can truly hear their pain and find the real source of the hoarding. Or with the Gakido, the Preta path, I can purify poisoned wells. Or maybe I just dig irrigation ditches with my bare hands. He glanced at Sasuke. We're not going out there to be gods, team. We're going out there to be ninja. The best kind. The kind that helps. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk touched Sasuke's lips. Troublesome. As the walls of Konoha disappeared behind the tree line, Naruto felt a profound loss and a simultaneous, terrifying freedom. He was unchained from the village's politics, but bound now to the world's conscience. The fracture among mortals was wide, and he was walking directly into the crack, hoping to bridge it with nothing but his will and the impossible power in his eyes. The age of the hidden village was ending. A new, uncertain age was beginning, the age of the wandering sage, the reluctant god, and the boy who still believed in ramen. And it started with a single, painful step on a dusty road. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4 will chronicle the journey into the land of rivers. Naruto will confront the gritty, non-combat realities of his power using the Asura path to build machinery, the animal path to summon creatures for aid, the human path to uncover corruption. He will face not warriors, but starving farmers and cynical bureaucrats. Meanwhile, the covetous enemy in the shadows makes its first move, attempting to acquire a sample from the now mobile target. The ideological war with the Unbound heats up as they dispatch their first truly potent weapon, not a ninja, but an orator, a philosopher general who seeks to defeat Naruto's ideal in the court of public opinion before a single blow is struck. This response is AI generated, for reference only. Next. Chapter 4, The Path of Hunger. Word count, 3,570. The road to the land of rivers was a lesson in the world's new reality. Villages that once would have welcomed a Konoha shinobi with wary respect now reacted to a cloaked traveler with either paralyzing terror or desperate, grasping hope. Word, it seemed, traveled faster than even their light-step journey. At a ramshackle inn on the border of the land of fire, the innkeeper's eyes had lingered too long on the bandages peeking from Naruto's sleeve. Heard the sage got hurt, the man muttered as he served watery stew. Hurt saving folks who didn't want to be saved. Makes you wonder what's stronger, his power or his stubbornness. It wasn't an accusation, just a weary observation from a man who'd seen too many ideals shattered by reality. Yamato, ever vigilant, had reinforced their mobile shelter each night with dense wood release walls, layered with subtle chakra-dampening seals of his own design. We're not just hiding from sight, he explained quietly as his wooden dome grew around them. We're hiding your signature. To a skilled sensor, your normal chakra is a bonfire. Now, with the Rinnegan integrated, you're a small, strange sun. These seals mute it to a candle flicker. It won't hold up to close scrutiny, but it'll get us past casual patrols. Sasuke was their scout and strategist. His Rinnegan, while lacking the raw, volatile power of Naruto's, was a perfect instrument for cold analysis. He would return from brief aerial surveys, his expression grim. The drought is worse than the reports. Riverbeds are cracked mud for miles. Fields are dust bowls. The main settlement, Ryuno Sato, is a pressure cooker. Earth-style granaries are full on the bluff where the lords reside. The town below is starving. Naruto listened, the weight of it settling in his gut. This was a different kind of enemy. No cage to shatter, no fanatic to disarm. Just the slow, grinding cruelty of neglect and greed under a pitiless sun. 3 days into the land of rivers, they found their first real evidence of the Unbound's ideological warfare. At a crossroads, a simple stone monument had been erected. It was not ornate. Carved into it was a stylized eye, a crude approximation of the Rinnegan, with a chain wrapped around it, broken in the middle. Beneath it, in the common tongue, it read, "True nourishment grows from your own soil, not from a god's hand. Be unbound." "They're seeding the idea before you even arrive," Sasuke noted, running a finger over the carving. "They're making you the problem, so their solution, rejection of you, seems like the only salvation." Naruto said nothing. He stared at the monument, not with anger, but with a deep, weary understanding. This was a battle of stories. And he was terrible at telling his own. Ryuno Sato was a study in vertical inequality. The town clung to the banks of a dead river, houses of sun-bleached wood and crumbling adobe. Above it, on a fortified mesa of sheer rock accessible only by a single, heavily guarded switchback road, sat the estate of Lord Hoki, a minor daimyo whose lineage had controlled the region's water for centuries. The contrast was obscene: lush, artificially irrigated gardens visible atop the bluff, a green jewel against the brown, dying land below. Naruto, Sasuke, and Yamato observed from a ridge, concealed by a wood release blind. The air thrummed with heat and despair. "Direct assault on the granary is out," Yamato stated the obvious. "Even if we could take it, distributing the food would be chaos, and it would be the miracle of Koruwa all over again, a god stealing from mortals." "We need to understand why he's hoarding," Naruto said, his Rinnegan activating with a soft glow. The world resolved into chakra flows. He saw the weak, flickering auras of the townspeople below, like guttering candles. On the bluff, he saw stronger, complacent signatures, the guards, the lords. And he saw something else, deep underground, a complex, manufactured chakra flow. There. Beneath the estate. It's not just a granary. There's a system. Pipes. Machinery. It's moving something. An earthnine irrigation network, Sasuke deduced. Probably built by his ancestors. He's not just hoarding grain, he's hoarding the very means of production. He controls the last dregs of water. Naruto made a decision. "I'm going down there. Not up there. Down there." He pointed to the town. "It's a risk," Yamato warned. "Your image is known. I'll keep the hood up. And I won't use the eyes." He deactivated the Rinnegan, the familiar blue returning, though it now held a depth that hadn't been there before. "I need to hear them. Really hear them." Disguised as dusty travelers, they entered the town. The smell of despair was physical dust, sickness, and a faint, sweet odor of starvation. People sat listlessly in the shade, their eyes hollow. A child cried, a thin, reedy sound that cut through the heat. Naruto approached an old woman tending a single, wilted pepper plant in a cracked pot. "Grandmother, where does one find water here?" She looked up, her eyes cloudy. "The well's been dry for a month. The river's been dead for 2. Lord Hoki sells water from his private spring. A cup for a day's labor at his walls." She spat dryly into the dust. "My laboring days are done. So my drinking days are too." A simmering rage began to boil in Naruto's chest. This wasn't a natural disaster, it was a stranglehold. They found a communal well in the town square, a deep, dark hole yielding only dust. A small crowd had gathered, not in hope, but in habit. Naruto stood at the edge, his senses stretching. With his normal chakra, he could feel the deep, slow trickle of an aquifer far below, but it was blocked, its path diverted. He knew with the Rinnegan's power he could summon it, force it upward. But that would be the spectacle. That would be the god providing. Then, a new voice cut through the murmuring crowd. A man stood on a low wall, dressed not in robes but in practical, dun-colored fatigues, the uniform of the Unbound. He was lean, sharp-faced, with the fervent eyes of a true believer, but his voice was calm, persuasive, not a scream but a lecture. "People of Ryuno Sato. You wait for miracles. You whisper of the golden-eyed sage who might come and save you. Look at this well. Would a god need to find water? No. A god would create it from nothing. But are you nothing? Are you helpless?" The crowd stirred, looking at each other. "You are not. Your ancestors tamed this land. They built the channels on the bluff. That technology, that knowledge, belongs to you. Lord Hoki hoards it, yes. But why do you think a distant god from a hidden village cares about your thirst? He cares about your submission. He wants you to look skyward for salvation, so you never think to look inward, to your own strength, or upward, to claim what is rightfully yours. The rhetoric was insidious. It twisted Naruto's compassion into a tool of control, reframed helplessness as a moral failing. Naruto watched, his hands clenched inside his sleeves. He wanted to argue, to shout that he was here, now, trying to help. But doing so would only validate the man's point. The god had arrived, making it about him. Sasuke's hand closed on his shoulder, a silent warning. Not this way. The unbound orator continued. True strength is taking back your water, your food, your destiny. Not by waiting for a blessing, but by demanding your rights. The unbound offer not handouts, but alliance. We offer the tools, the strategy, to reclaim what is yours. A desperate, hungry light was kindling in some of the eyes in the crowd. The unbound was offering agency, however violent. Naruto was offering, what? A mysterious traveler in a cloak. As the meeting dispersed, Naruto followed the orator at a distance, using Sasuke's sensory guidance. The man didn't leave town, he went to a small, nondescript hut at the edge of the settlement. Naruto, with a nod to Sasuke and Yamato, moved to the back of the hut, his chakra suppressed to nothing. Through a crack in the wall, he saw the orator speaking to two local men, their faces hardened by hunger and anger. The blueprint for the water lift mechanism is here. Earth release chakra of a minimal level can activate it. We have associates who can provide that. The raid must be swift, when the guard shifts change at moonrise. Hoki must be removed. His lineage is the chain. One of the locals swallowed hard. And the sage? The rumors. The orator smiled, a cold, confident thing. If he appears, he will either stop you, proving he sides with the oppressor to maintain the order that requires a god, or he will help you, proving you are incapable of your own liberation. It is a checkmate. His power is his prison. Your weakness, once embraced, is your key. Naruto pulled away, his blood running cold. It was a perfect trap. Philosophically and tactically perfect. Violence was brewing, and he was set up to be the villain no matter what he did. He regrouped with Sasuke and Yamato in their hidden shelter. We have until moonrise, he reported, his voice tight. We can stop the raid easily, Yamato said. Reinforce the bluff, neutralize the unbound agents. And confirm their narrative that I'm here to protect the powerful, Naruto finished. No. We have to break the cycle. Not stop the raid, but make it unnecessary. How? Sasuke asked, one eyebrow raised. Naruto's mind raced, the Rinnegan's latent analytical power feeding him possibilities. The hoarding is based on control of a machine. A machine built by Earthnine. What if the machine broke? Not by sabotage, but by natural failure. And what if the knowledge to fix it was freely found by the townspeople? A slow understanding dawned on Sasuke's face. The Azura path. And the animal path. Naruto nodded, a plan crystallizing. Yamato, can you create a diversion near the main gate at moonrise? Something that draws the guard's attention without causing alarm? Yamato considered. A localized, minor earth tremor. Attributable to the drought. It can be done. Sasuke, I need you to infiltrate the estate archives during the diversion. Find the original schematics for the water lift system. Don't take them. Memorize them. Sasuke gave a curt nod. Simple. And me? Naruto asked himself, his gaze turning inward. I need to have a conversation with the machine. Moonrise painted the deadland in silver and ink. In the town, a tense quiet reigned. In the estate above, guards paced. Yamato, hands pressed to the earth at the base of the mesa, released a pulse of chakra. The ground shuddered, not violently, but noticeably. A low rumble echoed. On the bluff, shouts went up as guards stumbled, their attention riveted to the settling dust near the main gate. Like a shadow, Sasuke scaled the sheer cliff face on the opposite side, his Sharingan and Rinnegan allowing him to find impossible purchase. He slipped into the estate grounds, a ghost among the distracted guards. Naruto, alone at the base of the mesa far from the road, placed his hands on the hot rock. He closed his eyes. Not to deactivate the Rinnegan, but to focus it inward, towards the Gakido, the Preta path, and the Shirato, the Azura path. He wasn't absorbing or building weapons. He was listening and communicating. He sent a thread of chakra down through the stone, feeling for the machine. He found it, a massive, earth chakra-powered piston system, drawing water from the deep aquifer and pushing it through stone pipes to the gardens and reservoirs above. It was a masterpiece of old-world engineering, now a tool of tyranny. With the precision of a surgeon, Naruto used the Preta path not to absorb the machine's energy, but to analyze its chakra flow. He found the stress points, the worn seals, the tiny fractures in the earth release matrix that held it together. Then, with the Azura path's power over machinery, he didn't attack them. He exacerbated them. Gently. Invisibly. Deep underground, a critical seal, taxed by decades of use and the recent, desperate overwork, gave way. Not with a bang, but with a sigh of releasing pressure. The great pistons ground to a halt. The flow of water ceased. At the same moment, Sasuke, in a dusty archive room, found the vellum scrolls detailing the machine's construction. His Rinnegan scanned them, photographing every line, every seal formula, into his perfect memory. On the bluff, panic of a different kind erupted. Servants ran to Lord Hoki, reporting the machine's failure. The guards, now confused by the tremor and the internal crisis, were in disarray. In the town, the unbound orator and his 2 local recruits were preparing to move when a new sound reached them, not the sound of violence from above, but the sound of shouting and confusion. Their moment, it seemed, was slipping away. Back at their shelter at first light, the 3 of them reconvened. Sasuke immediately began transcribing the schematics onto fresh scrolls. Yamato looked exhausted but satisfied. Naruto sat quietly, his bandaged arm throbbing. The subtle use of 2 paths in tandem had taken its toll. The machine is dead, Naruto reported. It looks like natural failure. Hoki has no water to hoard now. His power is broken, not by a god or a mob, but by time and his own greed. And here, Sasuke said, laying out the beautifully detailed scrolls, is the cure. The knowledge to repair it, or build a new one. The knowledge his family kept secret. Naruto took the scrolls. He didn't go to the town square. He went to the old woman with the pepper plant. He placed the scrolls at her feet. Grandmother, he said, his hood still up, his blue eyes earnest. These were found in an old cave. They look like they might be instructions for a water machine. Maybe someone here can understand them. She looked from the scrolls to his face, her cloudy eyes sharpening for a moment with a profound, knowing clarity. She didn't ask who he was. She simply nodded slowly. We have clever hands here. Hands that remember. Thank you, traveler. News spread through Ryu no Sato not of a miracle, but of a discovery. The scrolls were pored over by the town's few remaining elders and a young mason with a knack for earth release. The unbound orator tried to claim credit, but his rhetoric rang hollow in the face of tangible, human solution. The trap had been sprung on empty air. Within 2 days, a communal effort began. Using the schematics, they started repairing the ancient machine, not as subjects of a lord, but as owners of their own future. Lord Hoki, his leverage gone and facing a united, determined populace, fled the bluff in the night with his personal guard. Naruto, watching from the ridge with his team, saw the first gush of clean, cold water from the repaired pump, channeled now into a new, communal reservoir in the town square. The cheer that went up was not a prayer to a god. It was a celebration of human ingenuity and cooperation. He had not fed them. He had not given them water. He had given them back their agency. It was a quieter, more profound victory than Kurua. As they prepared to leave, the old woman found them on the road. She carried a small, full water skin. She offered it to Naruto. The first clean water, she said. It tastes of earth and effort. The best kind. Naruto took it, drank deeply. It was the most delicious water he had ever tasted. Thank you. The path is walked 1 step at a time, she said, echoing the blind pathfinder's words. Sometimes, the step is not forward, but down into the dirt, to fix what's broken. She looked at his cloaked form. Safe travels, sage. Or traveler. Whichever you prefer. As they moved on, heading towards the coast and the next point of tension, Naruto felt a fragile hope. He was learning. The Rinnegan wasn't just a weapon for battles, it was a tool for understanding systems, for enabling rather than enacting. The cost was still there, his arm ached fiercely, and Kurama's silence was a void in his soul, but the purpose was clarifying. He didn't notice the distant, high-altitude observer, a hawk with eyes that saw too sharply, that relayed images not to the unbound, but to a hidden laboratory where a man in a clean, white coat studied a scrolling panorama. The man paused the image on Naruto's face, zooming in on the bandages, on the faint, unnatural glow around his silhouette even in the muted sensor seal. Subject Uzumaki demonstrates advanced somatic degradation despite minimal overt power usage, the man murmured to a recording seal. Hypothesis, the awakened Rinnegan is in a state of perpetual, unstable symbiosis, causing cellular rejection. This presents a unique harvest window. The weakened host is mobile, isolated from his primary support structure. The sample acquisition phase may begin. Prioritize tissue, blood, and if possible, vitreous humor. He closed the recording. In a glass tank beside him, a single, grotesque eyeball, threaded with surgically implanted wires, twitched as if dreaming of a power it could never truly hold. The world had many kinds of hunger. Some were for bread, some for justice, and some, in dark, silent rooms, were for the divine itself. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5 will see the team reach the coastal region, where a different crisis awaits. A mysterious plague is affecting chakra users, believed by locals to be a divine plague sent by the Rinnegan to cull powerful mortals. Naruto must use the Naraka Path's power of interrogation and restoration to uncover the true, biological source of the plague, battling both the disease and the terrifying superstition it spawns. Meanwhile, the covetous enemy's sample acquisition team makes its first surgical strike, forcing Naruto into a defensive battle where using his power risks accelerating his own physical collapse. Next. Chapter 5, The Path of Plague. Word count, 3,850. The land of river's dust gave way to the salt-scoured cliffs and pine forests of the coastal land of whirlpools, a place of lingering Uzumaki echoes and fresh, maritime dread. The air here didn't taste of despair, but of a sharper, more primal fear, the fear of the invisible. Their journey had been shadowed. Sasuke confirmed it 2 days out from the port town of Uzumio. We're being watched. Not tracked. Observed. From extreme range. A bird, but its chakra signature is manufactured. Like a puppet. Yamato increased the complexity of their nightly suppression seals. The covetous ones, he muttered. They're patient hunters. Naruto's physical state was a slow-burning crisis. The cracks on his arm had receded under Tsunade's prescribed regimens and Sakura's long-distance scolding via toad call, but they were replaced by a deep, bone-deep ache, a feeling of his skeleton being slightly too small for the energy it housed. The silence where Kurama's voice had been was now a constant, low-grade tinnitus of absolute power. He slept fitfully, his dreams filled with geometric patterns of gravity and dissolving faces. Uzumio was a ghost of its former self. Once a bustling port connecting the mainland to forgotten islands, it was now a town under self-imposed quarantine. Ropes strung with tattered paper seals marked Kekai crisscrossed the streets, less for actual barrier purposes and more as a superstitious warning. Faces peered from behind shuttered windows, pale and suspicious. The problem, they learned from a haggard fish seller at a deserted market, was not drought, but the stillness. It starts with a chill, the man whispered, clutching a talisman around his neck. Then your chakra, it goes thick. Like sludge in your veins. You can't mold it. Then you can't feel it. Then, you just stop. Not dead, but empty. Like a shell. It only hits those with strong chakra, ninja, monks, even some of our best fishermen with old Uzumaki blood. They say, he leaned closer, his breath smelling of fear and fish. They say it's the sage's eyes, jealous of other powers. A divine culling. Another twist of the knife. Naruto's very existence was now blamed for a plague. They found the town's lone medic Nin, an elderly woman named Shio who was no relation to the Sand Elder, in a cramped backroom that served as a clinic. 5 people lay on mats, breathing but eerily still, their eyes open and unseeing. Their chakra networks, visible to Naruto's suppressed senses, were not extinguished, but were frozen. A crystalline, inert stillness had taken root in their cores. It is not a natural sickness, Shio said, her hands trembling as she wiped a patient's brow. I have tried every purgative, every antidote. It acts like a poison, but one that targets the soul's energy itself. And it is spreading. We've sent to the big villages for help, but with the world in such a state, who'll come? We're here, Naruto said, kneeling beside the nearest patient, a young woman with Uzumaki red hair already fading to a dull rust. He didn't ask permission. He closed his eyes and let the Rinnegan awaken. The world vanished, replaced by the horrific, beautiful interior landscape of the woman's chakra system. It was a masterpiece of frozen amber. The pathways were blocked not by a foreign substance, but by their own energy turned against itself, crystallized from the inside out. At the very center of the blockage, in her heart tenketsu, he saw it, a minute, complex pattern, a seal of unimaginable delicacy and malevolence. It wasn't attacking her body, it was rewriting her chakra's natural state into a state of permanent pause. It's a fuinjutsu, Naruto breathed, his layered voice filled with awe and horror. A living, infectious seal. Someone designed this. Sasuke's Rinnegan was also active, analyzing from a different angle. The pattern, it's recursive. It uses the victim's own chakra to replicate and spread to others through prolonged proximity. A plague of symbols. He looked at Naruto. The Naraka Path. The king of hell can interrogate and restore. It can rip the truth from anything, even a disease. But the king demands a price, Yamato warned. It consumes an enormous amount of chakra and focus. In your state. Naruto ignored him. He was already focusing on the woman, on that tiny, perfect knot of cursed logic at her core. The Naraka Path was not one of the 6 paths he'd practiced, it was intimate, visceral. He had to summon the visage of the king, not as an external monster, but as an internal judge. He placed a hand on her forehead. The air in the room grew cold and thick. Behind Naruto, a spectral, blurred outline began to form, a giant, multi-faced head with a single, cyclopean eye, its tongue lolling. The image was faint, unstable, wavering like a heat haze. The strain was immediate. Naruto's veins stood out on his neck, his own chakra surging to feed the summoning. The king's eye opened, fixing on the woman. A ghostly arm emerged from Naruto's own shadow, plunging into her chest. There was no blood, only a ripple of light. The woman convulsed once. The king's arm withdrew, clutching a shimmering, writhing mote of energy, the complete pattern of the seal, ripped from her soul. In Naruto's mind, the pattern unfolded. He saw its logic, its artistry, its chilling purpose, not just to disable, but to preserve the victim in a state of living data storage. This wasn't a plague, it was an experiment. A census of chakra signatures, frozen for later study. The woman on the mat gasped, her eyes snapping into focus, full of terror and confusion. Her chakra, weak but flowing, began to thaw. But the cost. Naruto collapsed backward, blood streaming from his nose and the corners of his eyes, not clear fluid, but dark red. The cracks on his arm flared violet, spider-webbing up his neck. A searing headache, like a hot nail driven between his eyes, made the world pulse in nauseating waves. That's it, Yamato said, his voice leaving no room for argument. He forced a soldier pill between Naruto's lips. You can't do that 5 more times. You'll burn out your brain. I have to, Naruto croaked, the metallic taste of blood in his mouth. I saw it, it's not natural. It's a message. A test. And if we don't cure them, the whole town will believe it's my fault. There is another way, Sasuke said quietly. He was studying the shimmering mote of seal pattern the king had extracted, now fading in the air. We don't cure the symptom. We find the source. The Naraka path extracted the data. My Rinnegan can analyze it. Every seal has an origin point, a master sigil. If we find it, we can disrupt it for everyone at once. It was a race against time and Naruto's deteriorating body. Using the extracted pattern as a compass, Sasuke led them out of Uzumio and into the mist-shrouded pine forests that clung to the jagged coastline. The stillness was a trail, and they were following it backward. The forest was silent in a way that had nothing to do with animals. The very air felt numb. They found the first evidence an hour in, a small, abandoned shrine to forgotten sea gods. At its center, carved into the stone altar, was a larger, more complex version of the infectious seal, pulsing with a faint, sickly light. Around it lay 3 older victims, traveling monks, their bodies still in the final stages of the plague, their chakra networks completely fossilized. A dispersal node, Sasuke deduced. Whoever did this is methodical. They're mapping the chakra-rich populations of the coast. As Naruto reached out with his senses, a sharp, professional voice cut through the mist. Subject located. Primary biometrics show significant degradation. Perfect for harvest. From the trees, shadows detached themselves. Not unbound fanatics. These were professionals. For figures in form-fitting, non-reflective gray, their faces covered by smooth masks with single, multi-lensed eyes. Their chakra was suppressed to near invisibility, their movements synchronized and economical. One held a device that looked like a cross between a sunbon launcher and a scroll case. Another held a set of wicked, chakra-conductive scalpels. The lead hunter's voice was calm, analytical. Uzumaki Naruto. We are from the Chimera Institute. We require a tissue sample. Compliance will minimize damage. Resistance, he gestured to the frozen monks, will be met with escalated retrieval protocols. Yamato's hands were already moving. Wood release, wood locking wall. Thick pillars of wood erupted, trying to separate and entangle the hunters. They moved with uncanny speed. The one with the device fired not sunbon, but tiny, glittering seals on paper tags. They attached to Yamato's wood and instantly unraveled its chakra structure, turning it to rotten sawdust. Chakra disruption seals. Sasuke was a blur of motion, Chidori screeching. A hunter met him not with a blade, but with a palm strike that erupted with a blinding flash of white light, a chakra-draining technique similar to the Preta path, but crude and violent. Sasuke recoiled, his own energy siphoned for a second, disrupting his attack. They were tailored to fight them. To fight him. Naruto rose, the world tilting. He couldn't afford a massive Shinra Tensei, the recoil might shatter his own bones. He focused on the lead hunter, activating the Deva path at its most precise. A sphere of increased gravity, the size of a grapefruit. The hunter's leg snapped downward, pinning him to the ground as if an anvil had fallen on his foot. He grunted in pain but didn't cry out. Gravity manipulation confirmed. Strain levels spiking. Harvest team, engage. The other 3 hunters bypassed Yamato's crumbling defenses and Sasuke's furious counterassault, moving with one goal, Naruto. One fired a net woven with chakra-conductive wire. Another dove low, scalpels gleaming. The third began forming hand seals for a binding jutsu. Naruto was trapped between the need to defend himself and the catastrophic cost of using his power. In that split second, instinct overrode thought. Not the Rinnegan's instinct, but the old, fundamental instinct of Naruto Uzumaki. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A dozen shadow clones exploded into being around him. Not Sage clones, not Kurama clones. Just his own, basic, chakra-draining technique. The hunters, programmed for god-level threats, were momentarily confused by the simplistic tactic. The net fell, entangling 3 clones who popped in clouds of smoke. The scalpels sliced through another. The binding jutsu captured 2 more. In the chaos, the real Naruto, moving on pure battle-drilled reflex, ducked under a scalpel, grabbed the hunter's wrist, and slammed a fist into his mask. It cracked, revealing a glimpse of a cold, clinical eye. But the touch was enough. The hunter's other hand clamped onto Naruto's wounded arm. A syringe-like device on his palm punctured the bandages. Naruto felt a sharp sting, then a cold suction. "They're taking my blood." Rage, pure and hot, erupted. The Rinnegan blazed. He didn't use a path. He simply released a wave of raw, unfocused chakra, the angry, defiant chakra of the boy who'd been rejected, amplified to a divine scale. A golden-violet dome of energy exploded outward from him. It didn't have a name. It was just a no. The hunters were thrown back like leaves in a hurricane, their equipment shattering, their masks splintering. Yamato and Sasuke were forced to shield themselves. The trees in a 20-meter radius were stripped of bark and branches. When the light faded, Naruto stood panting, the new crack on his arm weeping not blood, but a faint, luminescent gold. The hunters were down, groaning, their gear destroyed. The lead hunter, his leg broken, stared up at him, that clinical eye now wide with something beyond data, primal terror. Subject's chakra instability exceeds all models, he rasped into a broken communicator. Harvest, failure. Naruto stumbled over to him, grabbing his collar. The Rinnegan bored into the man's soul. The seal. The plague. "You did this?" A side project, the hunter choked out, his professionalism crumbling under the gaze of a furious god. Mapping, chakra types, for the master. The seal preserves them for study. The origin master sigil is the lighthouse on Tidecaller's Point. Naruto dropped him. He turned to Sasuke and Yamato, his breathing ragged. "We have to go. Now." "You're in no condition," Yamato started. "Now." Naruto roared, the command layered with an authority that brooked no argument. "Before they send more. Before that thing," he pointed a trembling finger at the still pulsing seal on the altar, "spreads any further." They moved, leaving the broken hunters among the silent pines. The run to Tidecaller's Point was a blur of agony for Naruto. Each footfall sent jolts of pain up his spine. The world kept trying to split into its chakra components, his control slipping. He was running on fumes and fury. The lighthouse was an ancient, crumbling Uzumaki structure on a needle of rock lashed by furious waves. At its peak, in the old lamproom, they found it. Not a person, but a creation. A complex, three-dimensional matrix of seals hovered in the center of the room, etched in light and humming with malignant energy. Below it, a series of scrolls unfurled, automatically recording the data streaming in from every infected person along the coast. This was the brain of the plague. And standing before it, his back to them, was a man in a pristine white lab coat. He was tall, slender, his gray hair tied back. He didn't turn as they entered. "Fascinating," the man murmured, examining a scrolling line of chakra signatures. "The Uzumaki resilience is pronounced, even in diluted bloodlines. A testament to the sage's own lineage. And you," he finally turned. His face was sharp, intelligent, devoid of malice but filled with an insatiable, chilling curiosity. His eyes were a normal, pale gray. "Naruto Uzumaki. The spontaneous awakening. You are the control group that invalidates all my prior hypotheses. I am Dr. Koton, of the Chimera Institute." "You're a monster," Naruto spat, leaning against the wall for support. "A seeker," Dr. Koton corrected gently. "The Rinnegan is the pinnacle of biological chakra evolution. But it should not be a singular event, locked in the chaos of destiny and bloodline. It should be a technology. Understandable, replicable, improvable. Your body is rejecting it because it is an imperfect vessel. My work is to perfect the union." He gestured to the seal matrix. "This stillness is merely a data-gathering tool. But you are the prize. My hunters were to retrieve a sample. Your violent instability has provided an even richer dataset." Sasuke didn't waste words. He flung a barrage of shuriken, each wrapped in crackling lightning. Dr. Koton didn't move. A shimmering barrier, composed of interlocking, rotating seal formulae, appeared around him. The shuriken struck and were absorbed, their energy feeding the barrier. "I am not a combatant," the doctor said. "I am a thinker. My defenses are automatic. Powered by the very plague you seek to stop. To attack me is to feed the matrix." Yamato tried would release, but the creeping roots were similarly absorbed and dissolved into the scrolling data streams. Naruto pushed himself off the wall. He looked past the doctor, to the pulsing, intricate heart of the seal. He saw its loops, its logic gates, its arrogant, perfect design. It was a mind, a cold, mathematical mind made of light. He couldn't smash it. He couldn't absorb it without risking total integration of its poison logic into himself. There was only one path left. The Nintendo, the human path. The power to read minds and rip souls. The most intimate, the most violating of all. Sasuke, Yamato, Naruto whispered. Buy me 10 seconds. Don't attack him. Attack the room. The structure. The floor. Understanding flashed in Sasuke's eyes. He switched targets, his Chidori spear slamming into the stone floor beside the doctor, not to hit him, but to shatter the foundation. Yamato's would burst from the walls, wrenching at the ancient stones. As the lighthouse shuddered, dust raining down, Dr. Kotan's perfect barrier wavered for an instant, recalibrating to the new, physical threats to its power source. Naruto moved. Not with speed, but with inevitability. He crossed the room, the Rinnegan fixed not on the doctor's body, but on the soul that hovered within, a soul as complex and cold as the seal he'd created. Dr. Kotan's eyes widened. What are you? Naruto's hand plunged into the doctor's chest. There was no physical entry. His hand phased through, gripping the core of the man's being. The human path was not for interrogation this time. It was for extraction. He saw it all. A childhood obsession with the mythical. A brilliant, amoral mind seeing the chaos of the shinobi world as a failure of design. The founding of the Chimera Institute with backers from nations and factions terrified of Naruto's power. The dream not of becoming a god, but of manufacturing gods, of a world where the Rinnegan was a tool for a new, rational order. It was a nightmare of perfect, soulless logic. And at the center of that logic, Naruto found it, the master control sequence for the stillness seal. The kill switch. With a wrench that cost him a piece of his own sanity, Naruto tore the knowledge free. In the real world, Dr. Kotan collapsed, not dead, but mind-wiped, a drooling husk. His consciousness had been the linchpin. In the seal matrix above, the scrolling data stopped. The intricate patterns of light shuddered, reversed, and dissolved into harmless motes that floated away on the sea wind. Along the coast, in Uzumio and in forest shrines, the frozen chakra of the victims began to thaw. The stillness was broken. Naruto fell to his knees, vomiting a substance that shimmered gold and black. The cracks on his body glowed like lava lines. He could feel his own chakra pathways starting to crystallize, a feedback effect from violating a soul so utterly. He had used the god's power to commit the ultimate sin, and it was eating him from the inside. Sasuke caught him before he hit the ground. Idiot! You overdid it! The lighthouse, Naruto gasped. It's coming down. The structural damage was too much. With a groan of ancient stone, the top of the lighthouse began to shear away. Yamato desperately tried to brace it with wood, but it was like trying to hold up a mountain. As the world tilted and stones rained down, Naruto, with the last of his will, looked at Sasuke. Get him, get the data. He focused everything not on a path, but on the most basic technique, amplified 1,000-fold by the dying embers of his chakra. A single, massive Kage Bunshin. Not a clone to fight, but a pillar to hold. A clone, glowing with unstable golden light, erupted beneath them, its back braced against the collapsing ceiling, its hands thrust against the falling walls. It bought them 2 seconds. Sasuke grabbed Naruto. Yamato grabbed the unconscious Dr. Kotan. They leapt from the crumbling window as the clone screamed with the strain and vanished in a cataclysm of light and stone, the ancient lighthouse collapsing into the raging sea below. They washed up on a rocky beach a half-mile away, battered and half-drowned. Naruto was unconscious, his breathing shallow, the luminous cracks on his skin now dark, as if the light inside him was dying. Yamato checked Dr. Kotan. He's a vegetable. Whatever you did, it's permanent. Sasuke, ignoring his own injuries, poured chakra into Naruto, trying to jumpstart his faltering system. Stay with me, Dobe. You don't get to die after a speech like that. Far away, in a hidden laboratory, alarms sounded. The main data stream from Caller's Point had terminated. Then, a new, encrypted packet arrived, containing the final biometrics from the hunter's shattered gear. A screen lit up, displaying Naruto's vitals from the moment of his explosive chakra release, highlighting the catastrophic somatic collapse. A different figure, shrouded in shadow, watched the data scroll. A voice, smooth and resonant, filled the room. So, the vessel cracks under the strain of its own divinity. The Chimera Institute's methods were crude. But their data is invaluable. The Rinnegan cannot be stolen. It must be transcended. Prepare the next phase. It is time to show Uzumaki Naruto that there are older, deeper wells of power than the eyes of a sage. And they are hungry. On the beach, under a cold moon, Naruto Uzumaki hovered on the edge of an abyss, not of death, but of transformation. The plague was cured, but a fever now burned in his own blood. He had stared into the soul of a monster, and a piece of that perfect, logical coldness had stared back. He was no longer just a boy with a god's power. He was a battlefield, and the war for his soul had just begun. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6 will deal with the aftermath. Naruto, critically unstable, must be taken to a place of ancient healing, perhaps the ruins of Uzushigakure or the depths of Mount Myaboku. His consciousness will become a battlefield, forced to confront the integrated presence of Kurama, the legacy of Ashura, and the cold, invasive logic of the Rinnegan itself. Meanwhile, the shadowy figure from the Chimera Institute's backers moves, unleashing a transcendent threat that operates on a different paradigm of power entirely, forcing a recovering Sasuke and the scattered allies to hold the line while Naruto fights his most crucial battle, the one within. NXR. Chapter 6, The Path Within. Word count, 3,920. The collapse was not a slide into darkness, but a shattering into prismatic fragments. Naruto's consciousness did not fade, it fractured, each shard reflecting a different aspect of the power tearing him apart. One shard floated in the cold, silent void where Kurama once roared. It was a library of latent memories now, the fox's bitterness, his grudging respect, their final, desperate merger. The silence here was a physical weight, a foundational absence. This was the Azura shard, the legacy of stubborn will and vast, untamed power, now hollow at its core. Another shard burned with geometric fury. It was the Rinnegan shard, a realm of perfect, logical patterns, gravity equations, chakra flow matrices, the recursive, beautiful horror of Dr. Khotan's plague seal. It hummed with the promise of absolute understanding and the threat of absolute detachment. Here, emotion was an irrational variable to be solved for. A third shard pulsed with the raw, bleeding edges of his own psyche, the Naruto shard. It was a cacophony, Irika's smile, Sasuke's rivalry, Sakura's fist, Hinata's whispered faith, the starving child in Kurua, the old woman's knowing eyes. It was love, grief, rage, and a desperate, screaming need to connect. It was chaos. It was human. His physical body was a ruin. Sasuke and Yamato had carried him to a hidden sea cave, their progress a nightmare. Naruto's skin was cool to the touch, the once glowing cracks now like charcoal scars. His breathing was a shallow, automated thing. He was not dying in the conventional sense, he was undergoing a systemic failure of the soul. "We can't heal this," Yamato said, his voice stripped of its usual stoicism as his medical green chakra washed uselessly over Naruto's still form. "It's like his chakra system is rejecting its own existence. We need Tsunade-sama. Or someone who understands the sage's power on a level we never will," Sasuke finished, his Rinnegan scanning the depths of Naruto's inner chakra network. It was a star collapsing in on itself. He made a decision, swift and ruthless. "We need to get him to Mount Mayaboku." The Great Toad sages knew the Sage of Six Paths. They might have precedent. The journey was a desperate race against an invisible clock. Yamato fashioned a litter of living wood that moved with them, cushioning Naruto's body. Sasuke led, clearing paths and avoiding all contact. They could not risk a fight, not now. In the fractured mindscape, the three shards began to orbit each other, their edges grinding. Ashura, hollow will we gave everything. And for what? To be feared. To be hunted. To break. Our power was meant to unite, but it only fractures. Rinnegan, cold logic unity is an inefficient state. Fracture is the natural result of incompatible systems. The human psyche and divine power are incompatible. The host is malfunctioning. The logical solution is to suppress the human variable. Naruto, bleeding heart, shut up. Both of you. I'm not a host or a system. I'm me. I want to go home. I want to eat ramen with Irika-sensei. I want to be Hokage. The Rinnegan shard pulsed, analyzing the emotional outburst. Illogical. Sentimental. Weak. The Azura shard rumbled, a memory of Kurama's defiance surfacing. Weak? It's the only thing that's kept him from becoming like Pain. Like Madara. It's the anchor, you glorified calculator. The argument was his psyche tearing itself apart. Mount Mayaboku was a shock of vibrant, surreal life after the grim coastal journey. The toads, from Gamakichi to the Great Elders, took one look at Naruto and fell into a hushed, grave silence. They bore his limb form deep into the heart of the mountain, to a chamber older than the concept of hidden villages. Stalactites dripped with liquid natural energy, and the air hummed with a primordial wisdom. The great toad sage, Fukasaku, peered at Naruto with milky eyes that saw more than the present. "Ma, this is a right mess, isn't it? The child's gone and let the gift break the giver. Can you help him?" Sasuke demanded, his usual aloofness burned away by urgency. "Help? We can provide the space. The energy. But the battle, young Uchiha, is his to fight." Shima, Fukasaku's wife, hobbled forward. "He's at the crossroads the sage himself faced. Power, legacy, and heart. They're having a right nasty row in there, I'd wager." They submerged Naruto in a pool of the densest natural energy, a syrupy, golden liquid that forced his body to absorb it passively, fighting the cellular collapse. It would sustain the vessel. But the contents of the vessel were at war. Fukasaku turned his ancient gaze to Sasuke. "You bear the eyes, too. But yours were taken, given, understood as a tool. His awoke. They are not his tools, they are becoming his nature. To save him, you must go in. Not with force. You must be the referee. Sasuke understood. He sat at the pool's edge, placed a hand on Naruto's forehead, and closed his eyes. With the shared link of their Rinnegan, he cast his consciousness into the maelstrom. He appeared in the center of the psychic storm, a solid figure in a realm of fragments. The three shards, glowing gold, azura, spinning violet, Rinnegan, and flickering blue, Naruto, whirled around him chaotically. Sasuke, Anchor, stop this. You're killing us. The shards pulsed, recognizing an external, familiar logic. Rinnegan, Uchiha Sasuke. Your eyes are a stable implement. You utilize power. You do not let it utilize you. Demonstrate the efficient model. Azura, he's all calculation and no heart. Just like you used to be. Is that what we want? Naruto, Sasuke. Help me. Make it stop. Sasuke looked at the pleading blue shard, the raw, terrified core of his friend. He looked at the arrogant, logical violet shard. He looked at the hollow, powerful gold shard. He understood the diagnosis. The Rinnegan is right about one thing, Sasuke said, his voice cutting through the noise. All three shards stilled, listening. You are trying to hold three incompatible states. The child, the heir, and the god. You cannot be all at once. Not without synthesis. Naruto, I don't want to be a god. Sasuke, it's too late for that. The power is in you. You cannot unknow what you see. You cannot unfeel the gravity you command. Denying it is what's breaking you. He turned to the Rinnegan shard. And you. You are not the master. You are a part of him. Your logic is useless without his drive. Without his why. Rinnegan, his why is chaotic. It compromises efficiency. Sasuke, efficiency for what? To be a perfect, lonely machine? Is that what the sage wanted? He had the power to rule the world as a god king. He chose to walk among mortals, to teach, to nurture. He chose connection. That was his why. Your logic is a powerful engine, but Naruto's heart is the driver. And Azura's will is the fuel. He was building a framework, forcing them to see each other not as enemies, but as components. The Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo, wasn't just one thing. He was a brother, a teacher, a warrior, a guide. He contained multitudes. You are fracturing because you're trying to keep them separate. You need to integrate. The shards hovered, the conflict turning inward. The concept was too abstract. Sasuke knew he needed to make it real. He focused on the Rinnegan shard, on its memory of the plague seal, its perfect, inhuman logic. You want efficiency? Then solve for this variable, his love for Konoha. His promise to become Hokage. That is the prime directive of the system, Naruto Uzumaki. All other functions must support it. Is protecting his home more efficiently done as a detached god, or as a leader who understands the people in it? The Rinnegan shard spun, processing. The Azura shard rumbled, recognizing the language of a mission, of a purpose. Naruto, I have to protect them. Everyone. Sasuke, then use all of yourself. Not just the power. Not just the will. The understanding. The Rinnegan lets you see the roots of suffering, the blocked aquifer, the logic of a plague. The Azura will gives you the stamina to act. And your heart tells you how to act. Not with domination, but with enablement. Not as a savior, but as a shinobi. It was a bridge. Fragile, but present. In the physical world, the liquid natural energy around Naruto's body began to swirl, not just absorbing, but interacting. The charcoal cracks on his skin started to flake away, revealing new skin beneath, not perfectly human, but marked with faint, almost imperceptible silver lines, like the ghost of a circuit board or ancient seals. Deep in his mind, the three shards did not merge. They moved into a stable, rotating alignment. The Rinnegan's cold logic became a lens through which the Azura's raw power was focused, guided by the heart's compass. A new, singular voice emerged from the alignment, still layered, but now harmonized. Naruto, I see. I am the will that endures. I am the eyes that understand. I am the heart that connects. I am not one. I am all. And I am Naruto Uzumaki. In the pool, Naruto's eyes flew open. They were not the blazing Rinnegan, nor his simple blue. They were a deep, twilight violet, with the faintest concentric circles visible only when the light hit them just right. The godlike power was not gone, it was internalized, mastered. He sat up, water streaming from a body that felt both infinitely old and startlingly new. The pain was gone, replaced by a humming, integrated wholeness. Fukasaku let out a croaking laugh. Well, I'll be a tadpole's uncle. He did it. Walked the razor's edge and didn't lose an ounce of himself. More, even. Sasuke withdrew his consciousness, opening his own eyes, feeling a profound exhaustion and a deeper relief. Took you long enough, dope. Naruto looked at his hands, flexing his fingers. He felt the gravity of the planet, the flow of natural energy, the life force of every toad on the mountain. He understood it all. And it did not overwhelm him. It was just information. I get it now. The cost. It's not about chakra. It's about perspective. To hold this power, you can't just be human. But you can't stop being human, either. You have to be the bridge. His voice was his own, but it carried a resonant depth, an unshakable calm. The frantic boy was still there, but he was now grounded by the patience of a sage and the resolve of a legacy. The peace lasted precisely 3 days. On the morning of the 4th day, a harried messenger toad, one of Ma and Pa's grandchildren, teleported in with a desperate scroll for Sasuke. It was from Shikamaru, marked with Konoha's highest priority cipher. Sasuke read it, his face turning to granite. He handed it to Naruto. The report was chilling. It wasn't about armies or coups. It was about silence. A vast region in the northern land of Frost, an area encompassing 3 small villages and a major trade route, had gone utterly, completely quiet 2 days prior. No chakra signatures. No animal life. No radio communication. Scout teams sent to the border reported a wall of perfect stillness, not a barrier, but an absolute absence of any energy, natural or cultivated. The very air within a 50-mile radius was described as deadlight. Plants were frozen, not in ice, but in a state of suspended animation. People caught in it were like statues, their chakra not frozen like the stillness plague, but erased. And at the epicenter, according to long-range sensing, was a single, massive, unfamiliar chakra signature. It did not feel human, or tailed beast, or anything on record. It felt, Shikamaru wrote with uncharacteristic dread, like a hole in the world. A conceptual vacuum. Attached was a fuzzy photo, taken by a hawk summon from the extreme upper atmosphere. It showed the affected area, a perfect, shimmering silver circle on the landscape. And in the center, a figure, tall and indistinct, seemed to be kneeling, one hand pressed to the ground. The report's final line was underlined, the entity broadcasts a single, repeating phrase on all mental and chakra wavelengths, return to 0. The 5 Kage are mobilizing a joint force. But Kakashi-sensei says, this feels different. This feels like it's for you. Naruto finished reading. The new calm within him didn't falter, but it focused into a diamond-hard point of understanding. The Chimera Institute had been a scalpel, trying to steal and replicate. This was something else. This was a hammer, aimed at the very concept his newly integrated self represented. A conceptual vacuum, Naruto murmured, the twilight violet of his eyes deepening. It doesn't want to rule, or study, or even destroy in the normal way. It wants to reset. To undo. Sasuke met his gaze. The ultimate rejection of your power. Not to bind it, but to negate it. To return everything to a state before chakra, before the sage, before gods and men. Naruto stood. The silver lines on his skin seemed to catch the light of the cave for a moment. He felt no anger, no frantic urgency. Only a profound, sorrowful responsibility. The test was over. The true trial was here. We have to go, he said. Fukasaku nodded gravely. The sage walked this path too, child. He faced a darkness that sought to unmake creation. He did not face it alone. I know, Naruto said. He looked at Sasuke, a lifetime of partnership passing between them in a glance. Then he looked inward, to the stable alignment within. The will, the lens, the heart. I'm not alone. As they prepared to depart Mount Mayaboku, Naruto performed a simple test. He held out his palm. He didn't summon a Rinnegan. He didn't invoke a path. He simply willed. In his palm, a small, complex shape assembled itself from ambient light and dust. It was a perfect, miniature model of the Konoha Hokage monument. Then it dissolved, and from the same materials, a tiny, thriving tree grew, or a single fruit, and withered in a cycle of seconds. Finally, it reshaped into a simple, smiling face. Creation. Life. Connection. All without a hand seal, without strain. The power was no longer something he used. It was something he was. Yamato stared, awestruck. It's like, you're not manipulating chakra. You're editing reality at a minor level. It's all the same thing, Naruto said, letting the image fade. I just finally understand the language. As they teleported away from Mount Mayaboku, headed for the gathering allied shinobi force at the border of the Land of Frost, Naruto Uzumaki was no longer a boy with a god's power struggling to stay human. He was the synthesis. The shinobi sage. And he was walking into a storm that didn't want to defeat him, but to delete him from existence. The battle for the world was about to become a battle over the very right of power and the heart that wielded it to exist at all.